All right, it is Wednesday. That means it's time to answer some common health questions. Joining me is News Channel 5's medical expert, Dr. David Soria, the Chief of Emergency Medicine at Wellington Regional Medical Center when he's not hanging out with us. Good to see you today.
You too.
Here's our first question. I didn't realize you can get appendicitis with what you eat, but I guess you can. So what can affect your chances of getting appendicitis?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some question behind that, but the reality is that what you eat can actually contribute to it. The reality is that the appendix is a tubular structure. It's in the right side of the colon, and the most common cause of appendicitis is an obstruction. That obstruction is typically caused from hard stool, and that's what leads to an infection. So we know that if you increase the fiber in your diet, softens the stool, less likely to have that obstruction of the appendix, less likely to lead to infection. And also we know that in countries where their diet is relatively high in fiber, they have less incidence of appendicitis. So increase your fiber, keep your appendix.
All right, we talked about the food portion of food and diet. Now let's talk about the food and diet. You know what I'm saying? Diet and exercise.
I'm with you.
Woo, it's late. Okay. What's the best way to treat runner's knee?
Yeah, runner's knee is otherwise also known as patellofemoral pain syndrome. And essentially what it is this pain right above the knee, because there's a tendon there that connects the femur muscles to the knee. But it can occur behind the knee, it can occur all over the knee. And the most likely cause is overuse or running, but it can also be caused from malalignment, in other words, flat feet, direct trauma to the knee. Things like that, but also weak muscles in the thigh. So the best way to treat it, folks, is obviously rest it. The old standby: rest, ice, elevate, and in time it will go away. However, also you got to make sure that it's not being caused by malalignments or flat feet, so you want to get arch supports. And then very importantly, make sure you do strengthening and stretching exercises. That in the long run is going to do the most good.
Okay, so do those squats.
Squats and stretch. Squats and stretch.
All right, thanks, Dr. Soria. Now, if you
welcome.
have a question for our good friend, the good doctor here, you can send it in. Look at that nice picture of you there. Send it in by going to our website, WPTV.com, then click on the health link. Scroll down on the right-hand side, and you'll see a form to write in your question. Thank you once again for coming in.
You're welcome, Caleb.
We will see you next week.
You bet.